Hey everyone, today we're going to talk about visuals, and there's no one better to talk about visuals with than Avni, who I've worked with, I don't know, Avni, how many years and how many classes. She has given this a lot of thought and presented to a number of different groups of students on how to make them looking better, and I think we should go ahead and get started. Welcome, Avni. All right, so we've got a first slide as an example. Take it away.
So one of the things, I'm going to talk a little bit about the things that I like about this slide and the things that I don't like about this slide. The thing that I like about the slide the most is that it's very simple, it's visual, there's not a lot of words. I think that's really great because if your slide is too wordy, people are going to read your slide and not pay attention to what you're saying, or vice versa, and that's just not effective communication. So I think like minimal words that pack a punch is probably the best way to go. The things I don't like about the slide are that, firstly, the title. I think that if you take all the titles of all your slides, like this part, and just line them up, you should sort of be able to get a gist of what the presentation is about. So your main message should be delivered in the title if your slide isn't going to be too wordy. So instead of lingering effects of the milk scandal, a better title probably would have been negative lingering effects of the milk scandal, or something that would just basically say like what the effects were, just deliver the message a little better. Maybe increased imports, increased global competition, decreased consumer trust, just sort of saying what the message actually is. And that doesn't make it too wordy. That would be perfect. The other thing is that the icons aren't aligned, and the best way to do that is to just select all the icons and then go to arrange and use the align function, which is such a lifesaver when you're trying to make good presentations. Those are probably the things that I would change about this slide.
Great, thanks. Okay, so now we've got a big slide with milk scandal. What do you think about this one?
So I actually think that this is a great slide. What I like about it is I think that it's okay to add a little drama or theatricality to your presentation. It makes it more engaging for your audience. So as long as you don't spend too much time on the slide when you're actually presenting, I think having this slide is sort of a dramatic like wake up for your audience.
Sure. Maybe have some sort of imagery to go along with that to really even grab it more. Those sorts of things I think makes a lot of sense. So it looks like in this slide, you've done a number of the things that you talked about a couple slides ago. I think you have a much stronger title slide, and there is imagery that sort of reflects what it is that I should know. What might you change in this slide to make it even better?
So I think that there's a little bit too much going on in this slide. It's confusing, and yes, it is very visual, but these are visuals that kind of take a minute to decipher and look into to actually get the message. And in this case, the audience might spend way too much time like trying to figure out what these graphs mean and not listening to you. In this case, it's probably better to make your own graphs, which is a lot of work, but it will just visually look a lot better because also like the color scheme is off with the graphs that are being taken from the internet. Those are probably the things that I would change about this slide.
Great, thanks.
Okay, so with this slide, it's similar logic to the slide before, which is that the visual is really cool, the graphic is really cool, but I don't necessarily think that it's the best graphic to tell the story. The way that our eyes sort of track when we look at a slide is very important when you're trying to deliver a message. Again, this may not be the case in this slide necessarily, but naturally our eye goes to something first and then something else next and then something else third, and you have to make sure that the way someone is going to like view that information chronologically conveys with your message.
So I see a fun picture and a pretty clear title, I think, in terms of, I guess I would learn how to communicate with new parents. I'm assuming that's what this is explaining. I'm a little lost in terms of actually how I might do that, but I'm definitely engaged. So let's talk about this.
Yeah, so I think this baby picture that we use in this slide was of one of the members of the group that was presenting, and it kind of goes back to knowing your audience. It's something that, would engage them, they would find funny, they would enjoy about the presentation. And when you are giving a presentation about a company, I think it's good to inject a little bit of humor and familiarity into it. It just makes it better for everyone watching. I think something that could have been improved about the slide, it's exactly like you said, there isn't really much information about how that's going to happen. So while the baby picture's cool and the icons are cool, maybe like a section where we're explaining a little bit more, like more words about how we would communicate with new parents. But yeah, that's just sort of, I think, the pros of it are adding a touch of humor and lightness to the presentation. The con is that you can't just have humor and lightness. You do also have to juxtapose that with like content.
So Avni, one other thing that I see here is at the very bottom, you've got some what we call breadcrumbs. What are your thoughts on breadcrumbs?
But I think it can definitely make things clearer and enhance the presentation if it is long, if it has multiple stages, and it just can provide some sort of structure. I would say it is definitely something that you would include in a more formal presentation. I think if you were to include it in like a fun, light presentation, it would take away from the funness and the lightness of it. But if you are giving a little bit more of a serious presentation, I think this is great.
So Avni, thank you so much for taking us through those slides. Do you have any last words of advice for our group today?
Yeah, I would say that we are moving towards a more aesthetic digital visual world, and I think people are consuming things or liking things or buying things because they look cool. So while I think that a presentation with okay visuals, that won't make it a bad presentation, I think great visuals are the difference between a good presentation and a great presentation.
All right, and I think we're going to leave it there for today. Thank you so much for your insights, Avni.
Thank you for having me.